Welcome to Ultra Life Today. You are so going to enjoy our next guest. We consider him a friend. His name is Edward Fletcher. This man is a fourth generation wildcrafter in the herbal business and really is renowned worldwide, known by so many people. Ed, we're so delighted to have you on the broadcast. By the way, I'm Josh Bellew.
And I'm the little guy over here. I'm Adam Payne.
The little guy.
Yeah.
So, Ed, just remind me really quick. Tell our viewers really quick. Gardens of the Blue Ridge, founded in 1892, fourth generation, your family. Give us a snapshot of how you were raised in this business.
Sure. Thank you, Josh and Adam. Good to see you guys again and glad to be here. So yeah, how I was raised in it, I was born in it, first of all, as my great-grandfather founded the nursery and has passed down through the generations. And I was raised learning how to propagate and grow these plants for our nursery. We were selling them in the ornamental industry. And when we would run low on the stocks of things that we needed to propagate, we would go out into the woods and wildcraft to get planting stock to bring back into our nursery where we could propagate them and sell them. So wow. I learned that aspect of it early on, and then we were selling in the ornamental industry. And then in the mid-'90s, our company came to me and said, hey, we need someone who knows how to propagate, cultivate, and grow and cultivate these botanicals for the medicinal uses because there's being a lot more pressure put on them from the wild. So that's when I was hired into this medicinal industry, and I had to flip my brain thought a little bit. Instead of nice color and height and beauty to yields, constituent levels and when to harvest. So it's been a transition, but the basics are the same. You find a species and either wildcraft at the proper time and replant it, or you cultivate it, bring it into domestication to supply what your customers are looking for. So that's what I've been doing all my life, actually. It's been fun.
So, Adam, I had spoken briefly with Ed, and something crossed my mind today that might be fun for us to go down this path, pun intended. Mood-altering herbs. Ed, so many people want to pick up something that's actually going to elevate their mood, going to change their mindset, maybe enhance cognitive function. What are some of the more common mood-altering herbs that people can find at the health food stores and online? But then also I want to ask you as well, should people take those for long periods of time, or should they really only be used therapeutically for shorter periods of time?
Well, you'll have to ask someone else more on the therapeutical use of that, but I can tell you the ones that I sell to companies who utilize those. I don't sell mushrooms. The psychedelic mushrooms are getting a lot of publicity lately, and I know that's a different realm. Yeah. But, things like valerian, that Valium was derived.
Right.
Sold a lot of valerian through the years. Customers are looking at valerianic acid. That's one thing that's a little bit, people may not understand, that if you're buying a powdered product, it's more of the how many milligrams per capsule. It's not always standardized to a constituent level, but if it's an extract customer, they're looking for a minimum level of valerianic acid. There's a lot of others. California poppy they use in blends with, chamomile to relaxing everything, passion flower, a lot of, seems like there's a lot more demand lately for Passiflora incarnata.
That's the passion flower. That's actually a really interesting botanical ingredient. We've used it in some of our products just for its ability to mitigate the body's pain sensation, right? So it doesn't necessarily, it's not used directly to mitigate pain, but it can indirectly help in how the body's perceiving pain, it seems.
Yes.
Now are there any herbs that also, we all remember the big ephedra, however you say it, craze, and then we remember when that basically got taken off the market. Are there other herbs that have thermogenic properties like that can actually help individuals with their metabolism, losing weight, energy, things like that?
Oh yes, I'm trying to think of the one that made sense to me because of its traditional uses in Africa. Maybe you can remember it, Adam. It's the one that when the travelers would go from one tribe to the next to deliver the message, they'd be running, for miles on end, half a day at a
Oh
time.
yeah.
Now, it's not Gotu-Cola, is it?
No,
It's
it's
not
not
Gotu-Cola.
Gotu-Cola.
No, okay.
No.
Okay.
No, it begins. I think it begins with a D. It's it's a herb that they would
Is it
chew.
Devil's Claw? No,
No. Devil's
sorry,
Claw's.
Devil's. Sorry, but I'll think of it in a minute. But to me, the guys were running and they would get tired and thirsty, and they would stop and have some of them and give them energy to make their trip. There was no scientific backing or anything. It just, hey, they knew this herb worked.
And among Asian populations, it's been very common for people to chew ginseng, right?
Ginseng.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
For the very same, it's very adaptogenic, but it also seems, I guess the Russians have done so much work in that area, and they've used it with their high performance athletes for decades and decades. It's just a staple.
That and the Luthra, which is
Right.
which
Yes.
is that was like the Russian secret weapon at one of the Olympics. They were
Yeah.
using that herbal concoction. There are so. What we forget, Josh and Ed, is that most of the pharmaceuticals that we use as pharmaceutical drugs really have their beginnings in herbal medication.
I had no idea that Valium came from valerian until just now. That's crazy.
Is it?
Since Ed mentioned
Yeah.
it.
But yeah, you're right,
Interesting.
Adam. Over 70% of the drugs started out as a botanical product. They just took it into the lab. They were able to synthesize it and produce it and patent it. Yeah.
And some are still used with the herbal roots, like digitalis. Is that still harvested for medicinal purposes?
To a small degree, but most of that is into the pharmaceutical realm now, yes.
It's very interesting.
Yeah. Going back to ephedra, that's an interesting story, Josh. You mentioned, I don't know if you all know the background of that, but I was on the board of trustees for the American Herbal Products Association when that happened. And you're right. Ephedra was the one product that still holds the record for being the fastest withdrawn from the market of any herb.
Oh, that's
And
interesting.
a little bit of the background was there was a minor league pitcher who was hoping to be drafted into the major leagues, and he was in spring training in Florida. And he had been overweight, and he'd been taking ephedra and doing some other things for his diet, but he was taking ephedra, and his teammates in there said that he had said, oh, it's helping me a lot, so I'm going to take more and more. So he was taking more than he should have been taking. Unfortunately, one day when he went to the mound, he knew that the scouts were in the audience, and he was really trying to make a good impression. It was a really above 90-degree day. He was dehydrated, they said, been taking too much ephedra, and he collapsed on the mound and died.
Wow.
And that was unfortunate, but why it came off the market so fast, he was I don't remember the exact relation. He was a distant relative, maybe a cousin or a second cousin, to one of our senators. So
Oh,
that
wow.
brought it to the fore. So that ephedra came off the market like that. So ephedra, it's still used around the world. It's actually a really good product. It's just,
It
again,
is.
the dosage is what's important. So
And I remember too, Ed, that some of the products that had come out that were such good thermogenic products for helping people lose weight,
yes,
they were combining certain herbs with ephedra that they should not have been. And
Right.
so it was creating problems for the lung and even potentially the heart. And they should have never
Correct.
combined some of those herbs together, which
Well,
I guess is another big story.
in America here,
Right.
one is great. 10 is
exactly.
better.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. More is
Yeah.
better. More is better.
another
That's-
one,
that's-
another one that's in the news for pain, pain deferring effects is the kratom, which has been used
Oh
traditionally.
yeah, kratom.
Ah.
Is it kratom or is it kratom? Oh, everybody around
Whichever.
here calls it kratom.
Potato,
Tomato.
potato,
Is
right?
it potato? A lot of people use
I
that,
mean,
and you know what's really interesting about kratom?
What is
or
the
kratom?
history on that?
Well,
I don't know
it's Thailand and
Okay.
Yes.
the Indonesia area. But
Yes.
what is kind of what's emerged in the folk culture is that for people that are trying to withdraw off of opiates, they've been
Yes.
a lot of people I've heard have been using kratom successfully
I've heard the same thing.
to mitigate their cravings for the opiates.
I've
Exactly.
heard the exact same thing. Wow.
I had a personal
Fascinating.
friend who was a masseuse therapist, and she's small and she bends over so much her back gave her a hard time. Well, then she went to the
Wow.
doctor. He prescribed pharmaceuticals, and she said she didn't like what it did to her head. She just didn't feel comfortable.
Sure.
Made her loopy. She started taking kratom, and she knew just how much to take, the right dose. She said it alleviated the pain so she could work, but it didn't make her head loopy, and she's had no problem being hooked or anything. She really swears by it.
Yeah, there's actually a really strong lobby that's actively trying to protect or protecting kratom in the public space, and I think for good reason. It doesn't seem to be doing harm to the community, and it does seem to be filling an unmet need in the kind of the folk space of people looking for these non-traditional interventions.
Ed, you were mentioning powders with milligram amounts and then standardized extracts. And I know that there's the stem, there's the leaf, there's the aerial portion of the plant. Now, how does are there some good reference books out there that people can get to know how to use herbs? Because I understand people that really know their stuff, they will only want to use one portion of that herb, and then they may prescribe to someone else. They may recommend to use the entire herb, or then they may recommend a standardized extract. Is there any good information that people could find? Because I know for me and a lot of people I run into, the more things are processed, the less we seem to like them. We love finding things like that. Your family, generational wildcrafting of herbs. So where's a place people can go to find out good information?
Wow,
that's
a loaded question.
I mean, I have a couple of really cool older books on herbs that were written by guys from around the world, that like you, it had been their family forever.
Oh, so are you asking where can people find the
good information to know how to take herbs? Right? A reference volume,
well,
a field guide. So
you could go, enter into a school of naturopathy. That would be a good start.
Oh, yeah. Which the average person will never do. So anyway,
yeah, you're right. I mean, there are a lot of good books out there. In my library, I've probably got 4 shelves of books that you're just referring to, Josh.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, and that's really hard. It'd be hard for me to point to one. I mean, some of them, look at the safety. Some of them look at how you use them. And you were talking about what part of the plant. I was grinning because I may sell one plant, one botanical species, to 3 different customers, and they may buy it 3 different ways. One's going to want the herb, or one's going to want only the flower, one's going to want only the root, one's going to want the whole plant. So it really depends on each company may want to differentiate what their product is, and so they've done research based on that form or that part of the plant. And when it's harvested, the constituent level, the marker compounds. So there is a lot of, I would always try to go back, if at all possible, to some of the homeopathic, or as you said, some of the older books, because to me, back then, it was sort of like I was telling you, the African who was running through the wild, and he may, eat 5 different plants, and if that one works, that's the one he's going to eat the next time.
Right. All this.
And with somebody documented. To me, those without going through a double-blind placebo study, if they've made it through several generations and they still work generation after generation, that's the book I would buy.
You are listening to Ed Fletcher. This is Ultra Life Today. I'm Josh Bellew.
I'm Adam Payne, and we'll be right back after this short break. Our mission is to take nature's most beloved botanicals and enhance them with our liquid protein scaffold technology. This helps it reach your cells faster and better. With exponentially enhanced bioavailability, you'll feel better every day. Ultra Botanica, the feel-good curcumin.
Welcome back to Ultra Life Today. I am Josh Bellew.
I'm Adam Payne, and we've been enjoying the company of one of our favorite people, Ed Fletcher, a botanist, somebody that's learned on the seat of his pants and in the trenches of wildcrafting and what was the other term? It's wild harvesting or wildcrafting and cultivating. Foraging, wildcrafting, and then cultivation. One of the topics that's been coming up recently, Josh, in some of the botanical conferences like Supply Side West, has been this: what's the difference between a wild-crafted product and a cultivated product? So, Ed, how does the industry, or how do we differentiate here what those are, and why is this important to the consumer?
Well, just to differentiate, a wildcrafted botanical is something that is harvested out in its native environment. Someone goes out and collects it in its native environment, in situ. That's also called foraging. And then any type of cultivation. You can also cultivate in the woods, not just in a field. People think of cultivation out in the woods, but there's a really big movement for forest farming recently, and I've been a part of that, which is really makes sense to me, because a lot of people will try to take a woodland botanical like golden seal and put it in a field setting and put the shade up, and they think, oh, we've got it. But that's not true. The wood, the microbes and all the biological activity in a woodland soil is so complex and much different than a field soil. So, but anyway, bringing something in domestication and cultivating is not an easy task to be successful at it, but that's part of what I do and I enjoy.
Is the resulting herbal product, can it be that different? I mean, it's growing and it's soil, but is it different? I mean, how different can it be?
It is.
I've got many stories that come to mind, but it sure can, Adam. First of all, the first story I can share with you is Echinacea angustifolia. So Echinacea angustifolia, when you harvest it from a wild, which is up in the Midwest, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, it's a kind of harsh environment in the wintertime. When you harvest it from the wild, the echinacea levels, which a lot of my customers are looking for, is above 1%, 1.2%. It's higher. If you cultivate Echinacea angustifolia, your echinacea are less than half of that. Most of the time, it's unacceptable. But in the traverse side, customers are looking for the alkamides. The alkamides are higher in the cultivated material than they are in the wildcrafted material. So it can completely change the constituents. And there's a lot of different things that affect that. But my general opinion is it's some of the stress values that are put on plants by nature, Mother Nature, the way it treats them, as opposed to
makes sense.
We pamper them, we water them, we fertilize them, we irrigate them, we keep the weeds out, we make it too easy on them so they don't stress and produce some of these constituents.
Oh yeah, so we're not going to expect a Marine to be born in a school of poetry, right? So and I guess we're not expecting a poet to be born in a Marine boot camp, though I guess it could be possible.
Yeah, I was reading a story, Ed, of one of your friends that you've hung out with over the years and lectured with. I can't remember his name, but it was so fascinating because it ties right into what you were saying about the whole natural environment that herbs are found in, because this man said he was going along with this older guy back when he was young. The guy only had like a third grade education, yet he knew all the Latin names, the binomial names of all the herbs. And he said the guy kept looking up at the foliage, at the canopy of the forest. And then when he saw just the right amount of light coming through and certain types of trees and stuff, he goes, here's where we're going to actually find bloodroot. And I thought that is just insane to me. It's so, but it really does, it does speak to this interesting idea that nature does different things with plants in different areas of the world, even the same plant, like ginseng, different. American ginseng, Siberian ginseng, ginseng from China. It's all just so different.
Think about the truffle story, right? How truffles grow or don't grow, and how you need truffle pigs to find these things that are that seem to, it's such an amazing biome that these things are growing in, and they I don't think anybody has ever been able to cultivate a truffle because of just the nature of that. And it's not a plant; it's a fungus, right? Which is completely different. But nonetheless, there's such stark differences between wildcraft and cultivated. Boy, I never really appreciated, Ed, those differences until you really brought out the difference between wild and all of the stresses that would be on that plant in the wild versus a cultivated environment where everything is kind of babied and provided for the plant. Very different.
So, Ed, do you think because recently you've been doing these lectures at like Supply Side and Expo. Do you think there really is a revival right now in the movement? Because it's been so scary to me to see so many of these herbs disappearing from different areas of the country through mining and other things like that. Is there really kind of a grassroots movement where people are really trying to get back to nature and do it, as I say, God's way?
Mm.
I think so. And it excites me because I can tell you in the last 5 to 6 years, I guess I'd say, I've had more customers. You know, they'll ask you on the phone, is it wildcrafted or cultivated, where did it come from? But in the last 5 or 6 years, I've had more of my customers want to come visit and see where the plants come from and tell the story. They want to see how we grow them, see how we wildcraft them, and they want to share that story with their customers. And I think that's coming, well, I know it's coming from the consumer level. The consumer is a more educated consumer these days, and they want to know where their plants come from. They want to know they're safe, how they're sustainably produced and grown or sustainably harvested. And, you know, that's what the big movement in the organic movement, the fair trade movement, all of these new movements are, yes, they're consumer pushed, or else it wouldn't be supported, or else they wouldn't be standing. But I do believe that's a new movement, and it thrills me. I'm really excited to see people who want to know more about what they put in their mouth, in their body.
Are you seeing emerge new people that are interested in how they can participate in the wild crafting movement and learning how to find these different herbs out in the wild?
They want to, but then when you show them the work that's involved, they'll go, "Oh yeah, that's nice."
Right. Yeah. When they drive up in their Mercedes with their smartphone on their ear, it's like, really? I have to get my hands dirty?
Yeah.
Oh,
when I take my customers out, I said, you know, either bring gloves, you're going to get dirt on your fingernails one way or the other, because that's the way it's done.
Yeah, most of these wild crafters are generational, right? So they've done, it's been, you know, and they keep their little secret hideouts of where these herbs are grown kind of as family secrets. It's truly amazing. You must have tons of stories, Ed, about what's going on there. So are there any herbs that have been emerging recently that are endangered or are that we need to watch out for, Ed?
Well, one that's not native to the U.S., well, I take that back. It's very small, Rhodiola rosea.
Oh, right.
Rhodiola was just added to the CITES at the last Conference of the Parties meeting, which is the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species. So that's one that's getting a lot of publicity, rightfully so. It was being harvested just in large numbers, but it is being cultivated in Canada, Alaska, and others all around the world. So it can be cultivated, but that's one that's really got a spotlight on it right now, Adam.
Well, so rhodiola, is that adaptogenic? Or
it is, yeah. That's also one used in Russia quite a bit.
Yes. Sure is.
Very interesting. Yeah, we've seen that actually have a big effect on people for energy and for kind of not weight management, but for energy management. Amazing.
So Ed, I've been watching this growing movement of people that live in the city, but they want to kind of get back to nature, and maybe they're planning on moving out of the city. And I've seen these YouTube videos where they go out and literally spend 2 weeks as a couple or a family at a farm, and they will learn everything from milking cows, how to sustainably raise agriculture, how to grow things. Is there also some places where people could go? I mean, if somebody types in, you know, herb weekend, are there some places where they could actually go for like 2 or 3 or 4 days at a time and learn how to do this?
Yes, there's a lot of places. There's a lot of small herbalist schools. There's at least 2 or 3 here in North Carolina, some in the Northwest that you can go and do internships, and there's farms too. Several of my customers have farms that they like interns to come and spend the summer on. I have some of the farms we work on, one in particular in Canada. We have 2 to 3 interns every year that come and help us do the work in the summer. So yes, there are. Just, you know, my suggestion is look the closest in your area and what you're looking for to find something.
Right. Free labor is fun.
It is. Right? it is. Very much is.
Yeah.
So do you see anything coming down the pike, Ed, for the future as it relates to the herbal industry? I know Adam and you have discussed at length regarding the contaminated or counterfeit products that are out on the market that you're not really getting what you want. Is there anything that's going to help move that into a better regulated state, across the nation, across the world?
Yeah, I think the spotlight is shown on our industry quite a bit. A couple of things that stand out. Number one, we as the Herbal Products Association, we've always encouraged the FDA to enforce DSHEA. DSHEA was
Right.
drawn up to help protect, make sure the safety and the quality of herbs, and they have a hard time enforcing. Their enforcement numbers are just, they don't have enough people to do the work. But that's one thing we've always said: just enforce DSHEA. We have rules and regulations to follow, just enforce those. And then another thing is Rick Kingston. I'm not sure, I can't remember his organization, Adam. You probably remember him from our conferences down in Mississippi. He runs some of the recall, I believe recall. In other words, he accepts a lot of recalls. I believe his company does that for pharmaceutical drugs and also for dietary supplements. And that shines a light on the low number of recalls percentage-wise compared to drugs because of side effects. And I just think if people would just look at these safety issues, the safety numbers on herbals are really such a low amount that I believe more and more of the general public will be comfortable being able to take these in the right amounts and in the right dosage, of course.
That makes complete sense. Yeah, there've been a couple of movements there with the FDA involved and the Herbal Products Association working hand in hand to understand where there's being counterfeit things done and how that they can be controlled. Most of the energy is on all of these cannabis products, especially with the artificial cannabinoids like Delta 8.
Right.
And that's been determined recently that Delta 8 is not a natural cannabinoid, and therefore it's going to be scheduled rather than allowed in the marketplace.
Wow.
So there's some significant changes that are coming in the medical marijuana and in the hemp space that I think is a little bit long overdue, and necessary in order to protect people.
So we've got about a couple of minutes left, Ed. Is there seasonally, are there herbs that traditionally are used more, for instance, in the spring and summer, and then are there some that then are used in the fall and winter more?
Oh, yes. I mean, generally speaking, in the fall and winter, there you're looking at your immune support. I mean, your immunity stimulators and support systems. And then I think in the fall and through the dead of the winter, the mood more the ones that support your moods with the winter blahs, I think as they call it. And then the summertime, I think more people want energy. So I think it does have a flow with the demand and usage with the seasons. Yes.
It makes sense. Well, you have been listening to Mr. Edward Fletcher, one of our friends, and it's always amazing to speak with him and learn more about our history of plants, botanical extracts here in the United States and around the world. Next time we have Ed on, I'm gonna get him to promise to tell us some more stories about hiking through the jungles of native lands, because you've done some pretty crazy stuff. I kind of look at you as an Indiana Jones of the herbal world.
Yeah, Ed and I were hopefully we're going to be heading out to Vietnam together to take a look at some plantations there.
Oh, that's right.
For some Quilla latifolium, but that has been put off, hopefully not indefinitely, because that's an important herb for women's health and men's health, and we'll be able to speak more about that later.
Ed, thank you so much for joining us today. We so appreciate it.
Yeah, Ed, we really appreciate you. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, this is Ultra Life Today. I'm Josh Bell.
I'm Adam Payne. Thanks for joining us. Stay tuned.